I'm Phoebe Esmon. We're here to talk about kitchen choreography. I'm going to give everyone a chance to sort of introduce themselves. To begin with, you want to start, Lynnette?
Hi, my name is Lynnette Marrero, and for this conversation, I am the bar director of Llama Inn and Llama San, both in New York City. And then I'm also a co-beverage director for some properties up in the Hudson Valley, including Duchess Spirits and Wonder Bar in Beacon, New
York. Jen?
Hi, everybody. I am Chef Jen Carroll, and I have a restaurant named Spice Finch in Philadelphia, where I'm the executive chef and partner. And I also run a culinary experience company called Carrol Cultura Cuisine.
And Jacob?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jacob Sessoms, chef and owner. Hard to describe exactly what I'm the owner of during the times of COVID, but I have a restaurant called Table, soon to be called Table right here. Phoebe and I are in the process of opening a new bar called Right There. I have a bar called Imperial Life, Oaxacan Mexican restaurant called Gallo, and a all-day cafe and bakery called All Day Darling.
So nothing to do. So a lot has changed since the first time Lynnette and I spoke about doing this seminar was last fall. I think it was September the first time we brought it up, and a lot has changed since this was first conceived last fall. And COVID-19, the pandemic, has placed our industry in peril, in dire peril. And more restaurants are closing every day, and many bars that shuttered at the beginning of quarantine will never reopen. And those businesses that have reopened face daily challenges that are different from the ones that we had before. Pre-COVID, in pre-COVID bars and restaurants, at a fraction of the profits amid constantly shifting local and federal guidelines and regulations. If our industry is to come out the other side of this, I think that we all have to adapt and think creatively and allow ourselves the flexibility of mind to entertain ideas regarding service and serving that we might never have considered before. Developing and nurturing an atmosphere of cooperation and cross-fertilization between the bar and the restaurant is one of the most important things that we can do right now to support our businesses, to make the most of our product, and to minimize waste, while increasing creativity and hopefully customer satisfaction. So this isn't the same talk we gave in November, or that it's very different because it's hard to sort of fathom sometimes the way everything has truly changed for our industry and for, I think, everyone who had to go to work, who had to leave their home to go to work before. Life is different for. Since we don't have a live audience, which is the way I'm used to running seminars and stuff, I'd like to treat this more as a discussion between all of us than as a lecture. And I'm Phoebe Esmon, and I'm the bar director for Perfectly Ad Hoc Hospitality and all of those places that Jacob just described to you. So I think we should do it as a discussion. I think that's the best way to do it. We're gonna start by talking about some basic things to sort of build your relationship with the kitchen, things to sort of consider when you are maybe coming into a situation, you're in a bar that is attached to a kitchen, and maybe, well, I believe deeply that the best restaurants are the restaurants where the kitchen and the bar are working together in concert, because it affects the whole hospitality experience of everyone who comes into it. And it also affects the bottom line of every restaurant. And we're all thinking about our bottom lines if our restaurants and bars are open right now. Because by sharing and both our sort of our creativity and our ingredients, we can maximize our potential and maximize our profits. So I'd like to start with the chefs. Jen, do you want to start?
So for me, I love bringing everybody all together and collaborating, and I think it's really important, like you were saying, to have the bar and the kitchen. The relationship's very symbiotic, because as a brand, as a restaurant, we want to be one as a whole. And so when you come into the kitchen, you know, there's this whole dichotomy in the restaurant industry of front of the house, back of the house, and bar, where we're so separated. And I think, number one, those walls and barriers need to start to be broken down. But when coming back into the kitchen to either get an ingredient, whether it's a lime or a spice or an herb, or to share a piece of equipment, or to you know, work with on the line and use the fire or something like that, I think it's really talking to whoever the chef is, whether it's the sous chef, whoever is in charge, right? Like, don't go into the kitchen and ask the prep cook of, can you get something? Because the prep cook most likely is going to say yes, because that's just, why not? And the chef may be in a bad mood or something like that and not know what you're doing and not understand what you are coming for, where he or she may have said yes anyway, but they just don't know what you're doing. So they're trying, they might say no and have a reaction that probably shouldn't be of yelling at you or kicking you out of the kitchen, which then intimidates, you know, the bartender from then coming back and keeping that relationship open. So I think it's really addressing who is in charge, maybe setting up a time beforehand of saying, hey, I want to come in and I want to learn a little bit more about ingredients you're using, how I can make them work in my bar program. So I think it's just having those open communication of coming back.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also don't think that there should be a dichotomy between front and back of house. The only way to run it is to run it like a submarine. Everyone supports everybody else. Jacob?
Yeah, well, I'll speak to that. As Phoebe knows, I am in the process of opening my 9th concept, and it will be the first concept I've ever opened that actually has a separation between front and back of house. I don't build restaurants with a separation. Bars flow into kitchens, kitchens and bar flow into the dining space and the entry in every concept I build, specifically because, well, it's kind of the way I started. When I was 27 and opening my first restaurant, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. But I learned quickly that it did break that divide. But also as a chef and restaurateur that has been dedicated to doing every role in the restaurant, I have spent a lot of my career behind the bar as well as in the kitchen. And my approach to food is, I hate the phrase, but is very farm to table. And so to me, when I see an egg, every part of that egg has a value. And when I walk into a bar and I get a drink and I see a bartender throw an egg yolk away, it is like getting stabbed in the heart. And so I have always tried to foster an environment in all of my establishments where every single part of a product is used, even if that means that we cross-utilize it between the bar and the kitchen, rather than saying the bar, make sure you put an egg yolk drink on the list if you're going to have you know, an egg white drink. What we try to do is say, okay, well, the bar backs get to make ice cream from now on because the bar produces 400 egg yolks in a matter of 2 weeks. So now the bar backs get to make ice cream for the kitchen, or whatever the case may be. Or, you know, the rind from the watermelon that the kitchen is using for a watermelon salad goes to the bar to be fermented for watermelon soda or aqua fresca or whatever. Yeah, and Phoebe has done extremely well with that philosophy as well, prior to us even working together. But waste not, want not. Also, as all of us know, our margins are so slim and they're getting so much slimmer that if we can turn what would traditionally in a lot of houses be garbage into product that we can make delicious and sellable, that is my highest goal.
And I think one thing too of having, you know, bartenders and cooks working next to each other and prepping next to each other, me being a chef, looking around and seeing what the bartender is doing and seeing how they're working, how they're making a simple syrup, how they're juicing something, I can probably teach them something to make them more efficient and to have less waste and to then therefore cut down on margins, cut down on labor, cut down on time, and make everything better. So I think there's such greatness and such, you know, importance that we all work together and to help each other out to become better.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, I think it's, you know, especially right now in the pandemic, most bars can't open without a kitchen, without that active food. So now more than ever, it's so crucial that we are working together reusing products, ordering together, having just the mindset, communicating what's needed. I think everyone's trying to figure out, especially if you have a smaller kitchen that has maybe that is harder to produce certain types of things. As we have guests coming in all the time who are confused about the whole food rule, and we're like, hey, it's not us. We just don't want to lose our license. So we have to buy something, and it can't just be a bag of chips. And so, we've worked, you're working with your kitchens, be like, okay, what is that item that is low cost that can be produced that we can give to them per drink so that we're maintaining the integrity of the law and being safe. And, I think this is a really important time to fine tune those systems. I've already, with my relationships of working with chefs, I already transferred and started working in the same units of measurements, working in grams. That way everything's more consistent. And, it took a while. I think bartenders were a little resistant to that, but it's just a simple matter of asking, if I can borrow the food scale, or you get one dedicated for the bar. But if your ownership is invested in you having accurate products that you're going to be producing the same way, then investing in a food scale for the bar to have to measure out stuff is a small investment for the overall gain that I see.
Absolutely. I don't know what I'd do without the food scale now. And to Jen's point, I've learned a lot of techniques from my relationships with the kitchen and how to use tools properly that I was doing, I don't want to say I was doing things stupidly before, because I don't like to think of myself that way. But I will say that I spend less time, and I'm a far more productive person as in my prep shifts than I was previous to working closely with kitchens. And to what Jacob said, I believe in using the whole pig too. That's what I call it, just the whole pig, whatever it is that I'm using. So I want to segue from that into sort of how we've touched on it a little bit, but it's the proverbial elephant in the room, is sort of the way that we're adapting and rebuilding our relationship sort of with kitchen, in order to try to survive during a pandemic. I mean, unfortunately, there's no guarantees that all of the businesses will, and it's terribly scary for everyone who's working, and especially for owners. And sort of touch on some of the new stressors, and then talk about how our job roles have changed, really. So do you want to start with that, Lynnette?
Yeah, it's for those of us who are beverage directing and leading teams, it is a really odd time. I think we all opened up with a bunch of inventory. We're like, what are we doing with all this stuff now? It didn't make sense to, after being closed or just doing delivery, to all of a sudden bring in a ton of new product. And that brings its own complications. You're trying to, we were all closed in March, and we're opening in summer, and it's constantly looking at all your products and be like, how can we make this a little more seasonal appropriate? We've been sitting on cases of whiskey that everyone just in the summer wants to drink white spirits. And I'm like, I swear I'll be able to get to those 24 bottles of rye as soon as Labor Day is over. So I think that's been a bit of strategically trying to figure that out, how to sell some of that product, how to make sure we're maintaining the program's identities. The two different programs in the city that I'm running, which I think the city has more restrictions at the moment. So we are just dealing with outdoor. So that's been more aggressively retooling things. So at our two different restaurants, Lama San, which is more of the high end, we have 16 seats outside that we are running with. Basically, our head bartender and two of our bartenders are pulling shifts, and they are the bartender, the server, and doing everything. So they come out, the GM and managers of the day are filling in as the host, and also then helping to som when the bartender is back making drinks. And then we have one food runner who is working to help the kitchen pack up caviar orders and things like that, while also lending a hand there where they can. So a 3-person front of house team a 3-person kitchen team are putting out, you know, what we're hoping to striving for, kind of Michelin style food. And it's a challenge. And that's been also going through our products. So the things that we were left with were probably, you know, when we reopened, the more expensive wines by the bottle, the more expensive sakes by the glass. And that's, you know, created a cycle of how we have to move things around, how we're making menus, how we're listing the products. So, you know, on any given week, it's not everything is $30 when it comes to the program. So we have to like move things around. And then, you know, asking my bar team to rethink their position. You know, they were already, especially in those type of restaurants, your bartenders are already servers, because you know, if people can't get a table, they will sit at the bar and dine. It's just a different dynamic. So that's led to things as efficiently group batching things. So that way the bartender can physically do all those things all at once. And just, again, you know, being nimble, and the managers, you know, we've had to do things that we've never thought, like hire security on some days of the week, because we are in the middle of New York City on 6th Avenue, and it's just the same traffic isn't there. So sometimes for our staff and our patrons to feel safe, we have to have security there to deter people from bothering tables, which is a whole different, it feels weird, but that's what we've managed to do. And then with thinking of the cocktail program, you know, we're running 3 cocktails at a time, and a lot of that's pulling from the kitchen. So again, they were doing a cucumber dish, had lots of leftover cucumbers, so it went into our summer highball that we were making. So it's just a lot of that, working on those thin margins, making sure we're supporting each other. Ordering has been challenging in that way too. So just knowing when your distributors are going to show up or not. And then the larger distributors trying to meet minimums is nearly impossible. So we've had to trade out products, and that's also really affected the Llama Inn space, where we have more volume. In that space, we only really lost about 16 seats, which is our bar area, because we had a massive outdoor front area. But that means we have more staff on, and we also have a rooftop. So guests have to go through the rooftop to go up there. And so we have like almost 2 restaurants running at the same time in a space. And so that can also be a bit tricky about how you get products from one bar to the other, because we're sharing some higher end products. So the teams have been really incredible, and we've been able to promote some people and move people around, because sometimes some people didn't want to come back. So that's been also staffing internally. Basically all the servers that we're not using at Llama San were able to take open positions at Llama Inn. So we were able, fortunately, that everyone who wanted work, we were able to fill them in through the restaurants. But that's us being lucky of having multiple menus.
Jen, how are you? And how are you and Billy doing it?
Hi. So we have 2 different experiences going on. One, you know, starting off with the catering and like the culinary side, where we were doing events. We've really just completely pivoted to doing online virtual stuff, and that's added extra stressors just by trying to figure out, you know, how to become a videographer and how to do lighting and sound and all of that stuff. So that has just been a whole other world on its own. But talking about, you know, Spice Finch in the restaurant in Philadelphia, right now we are still closed for indoor dining. We're getting ready to open up for 25% indoor dining, which luckily enough for me, I have 160 seats inside. So I'll still be able to get a decent, I think it works out to be around 38 seats that I'll be able to get inside. And we're doing outdoor dining. At the moment, we have 28 seats, and we had to order more tables for outside, because we are lucky that we're going to get the whole block. And so we had to, like, there's new financial stresses. Like, we have to buy tables, we have to buy chairs, we have to buy umbrellas, we have to buy all this new, you know, the PPE. And there's different financial stressors because of buying all of that new stuff, the price of products that have gone up because of the production line having trouble like getting to us, and just difficulty with the farmers. We're having trouble staffing. A lot of our team doesn't feel safe, but they don't want to come back, and that's across the board here in Philadelphia. And we're trying to work through that. And like Lynnette said, like, we've promoted some of our team up who has come back, but we are working with a very, very small team. We're working with, you know, a manager, a server, the bartender who is the server, bartender, and they are all the host, the food runners, the bussers, the dishwashers, the chef in the kitchen. There's a chef, a prep cook, and a cook, and they're doing everything. And it's crazy because they're still producing a menu. We've limited our menu, and we're looking at new ways to make it, you know, more efficient constantly every day, and watching our P-mix and seeing what makes sense and what we can do to tighten everything up more and more and alleviate some of that load that is going on the team, because it's a really big lift for, you know, the chef to be coming in and doing all of the prep, to be cooking, to be doing the dishes, to be cleaning up, putting in all of the orders, you know, even doing a schedule with 3 people, you're still doing a schedule. So you're still doing all of the same work with just so much more. So we're just trying to figure everything out and try and make sure everybody is good mentally with our teams, because there's mental stressors of just coming into the space and having to deal with guests. Some are just amazing, but some are just not the best and just don't care about anybody else's health or well-being or social distancing and all of that. So there's just been a lot more mentally and emotionally, I think, that is put on everybody right now.
I agree. I think that the toll, the stress of working service is, I'm more tired than I should be for doing what I'm doing. That's how I feel. It's like it's exhausting. It's mentally and emotionally exhausting. And Jacob, I guess you and I can go in tandem about what we're doing with El Gallo regarding pandemic. Well, we opened during the pandemic too, so we could start there. Jacob.
Yeah. So we had 2 concepts in the building where Phoebe currently works. We had a craft cocktail bar that was a high-end, I would even call it high-end casual cocktail bar during the week, and kind of a DJ bar at night, because that's kind of where our bread gets buttered, with a 50-seat bistro style service restaurant called Table on the ground floor, with no outdoor dining at all just on a sidewalk on a city block. We decided, because one of my partners purchased a building around the corner post shutdown, to take the concept that we called Table, my bistro style restaurant, and move that to a new building and open a new bar and reopen Imperial Life, our cocktail lounge, alongside the new concept, the Oaxacan, semi-casual Oaxacan restaurant. Here in North Carolina, the regulations we're facing are pretty straightforward, but fairly stringent. We have, of course, like everybody else, tables must be 6 feet apart. We're at 50% capacity on all levels. The city has graciously approved that we use outdoor parking spaces for dining, but of course, that's fine for today and tomorrow, but as all of us know, winter is coming, and nobody's going to want to sit outside. And ultimately, we're not really allowed to open bars now. As Lynnette, as you spoke to, we can serve food even on the level, the second floor of our space where we have a bar, but ultimately, what is the response of the community at large if we have what everybody knows is a cocktail bar and a DJ bar that's open? So we've been trying to brainstorm on how to address that. So we've kind of amalgamated the 2 concepts, the Mexican sit-down restaurant with our DJ bar, and kind of made them all one to try to make it work. But it's a constant stress and a constant nightmare to figure out how to limit the people that don't care or don't care about their proximity to others, how to keep them separated, how to address how we allow enough people in the building to make it worth our while not ending up making a bad name for ourselves in our community. We're in a small town and everybody talks and everybody knows who's doing what. So it's really been, it's been a lot of stress. And then we have the 11 p.m. Alcohol sales moratorium in this state. I think, are all of you dealing with that?
Ours is midnight in Philadelphia.
Yeah, New York, you have to be clear. In New York City, 11 p.m. Guests have to be removed from the outdoor. Upstate, we're a little bit, we can extend longer, but that is requiring food. So you're gonna have to figure out, if it's worth the labor of having the kitchen staying for the small amount of things.
I mean, for us and our concepts, when I sit and do the books now, it has been the worst. It has been the most difficult part of this entire process, is now limiting our sales. The sales in that building from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. are what have paid my rent for years and years and years and years. And so, to be quite honest, it's been the most frustrating part. And it's the first time that I've felt like I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I have pushed to get through from March to where we are now, and worked on raising capital and gotten the PPP funds, of course, and the EIDL funds, of course, but worked to get more investment capital into my concepts to keep them open. But when I'm sure that this is not going to be the most popular viewpoint, but when the government comes in and tells us how we can conduct business, it makes me want to not do business anymore. And it's also, Phoebe can speak to this, it's drastically, we've seen a drastic change in our clientele because of the unfortunate, divisive political nature of what we're facing. We live in a small, very liberal tourist economy driven town, and the clientele that's going out are the clientele that are strictly not worried about coronavirus, and it's changed what we can sell and how we sell it. And that's been another difficult hurdle. Like, Phoebe's going to spend tomorrow making Jello shots instead of the cocktails that we really want to sell.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of my solution for the cocktail program. For El Gallo seems to be working pretty well. Like our in the presentation, there's a spreadsheet of that is my costing spreadsheet. Through the use of Super Juice, which was actually developed by Bar Expo in Kentucky, and some creative sideways thinking is what I call it. We've been able to keep down the cost on our margarita, and like through fermented sodas and things like that are using what amounts to garbage to make things that taste good that people want to drink. Like our margins on our cocktail program in El Gallo are really good. If you look at when we first thought we were going to be reopening a cocktail bar, I wrote a cocktail list the way that I would have written a cocktail list, except for everything was designed to either be bottled or on draft. So I transferred all of our beer drafts to accept corny kegs. And so half of the drinks are on draft, half of the drinks are in bottles. We're actually gonna cut the size of the menu down because it's not a realistic thing to do. So we're just sort of gonna cycle through the drinks that I've already made until I find the 7 or 8, probably 7 because I like odd numbers, that sell the best, and those will be what we land on until we change when the weather gets cold. But the prospect of, and we've also, service is such a moving target right now because like, how do you serve alcohol, to how do we, like, how are we, there's a fine line for me between not policing people's behavior and social irresponsibility, and how do we keep on the right side of that line? And that's something that, like, that is when you're in the atmosphere, people want to go, the people who are going out really want to go out, and they want to do stuff, and they want to, party, they want to listen, they want the DJ, they want to, be with their friends. And we're, you know, struggling. And I think hopefully we found a good solution finally to like, for a way to like get the drinks out quickly enough to serve the few people who are coming, you know, so that we can, because we have to move volume, like with the money, like the plates, the ticket price, your average ticket price at El Gallo is far lower than the one than it would have been when this space was table. So in order to make the money, we need to sell a lot more stuff, you know, to fewer people. So that's sort of been, that's a challenge. And, you know, to what Jacob said, I've had the same thoughts that you've had, you know, like I'm questioning whether I'm doing the right thing and whether I still even want to do this, but this is what we're doing, until we're not. And, you know, like I'm going to make a go of it. We're going to do our best to make it a success, but it's an uphill slog for sure. In terms of, things that we can do to like, I want to talk a little bit about like, I know that there's lots of, you know, food waste was a big topic before. It's an even more important topic now because now we really need to use the whole pig. We need to use everything. You know, I made a really weird highball for upstairs that has corn in it, but in order to do the thing, like I'm garnishing with like sour corn, but I made corn stock. So I took all the corn cobs and like cooked out the corn cobs to make corn stock that I then fermented with some red bell peppers. It tastes a lot better than that just made it sound, but but like what? What'd you say? But like, you know, like stuff like that. What are you doing, Lynnette? I know you said something about cucumbers from the kitchen and.
Yeah, and there's kind of 2 points I think I want to kind of jump in a little bit. So kind of going a little bit back, and we'll touch more upon it when we talk about service with like, we have to rethink how we are serving, especially when we have limited time periods with guests, and we still want to give, you know, a great service. So there's that kind of timelines, and this is where I do think, you know, this strong relationship, kitchen and bar, really makes sense because you're, you know, we're like we're the beginning of the meal, and we're usually the tail end of the meal, and then there's lots that has to happen in between while we're also, you know, beverages bringing those check averages up. It is helping our overall pace, and we can buy the kitchen time. And so I think that we'll talk a bit more about that in service. But I think when it comes to, when you're talking about just making sure, like I think some of the waste problem that I'm bummed about, so on the other side of, is how much disposable waste we're producing, right? With to-go drinks. So we've opted for reusable glass jars instead, pay more of a premium for our to-go drinks. But you know, all the plastic to-go containers are killing me. You know, it's really frustrating because I know we're sitting here trying to do as much as we can for the environment from our food standpoint. But, you know, a lot of what we're doing for our next menu coming up is working with Chef to get the local, everything, you know, right now, to everyone's point, we have a clock. You know, New York City, as of October 31st, or actually all of New York State, no more outdoor dining. It's like, we all know people are going to really like, it's already going to be a struggle for all of us to try and convince people throughout October to sit outside. But that's done. And so we're trying to look at right now, everything that's really super fresh and seasonal to get some milk punches going and things that we can have in bottle and be more prepared for what might happen when guests are going to take more with them, or we have less seats that can be, you know, who knows what will be allowed on if we're allowed people inside. But even for upstate, if I'm going to be losing my extra 12 seats outside with my reduced capacity inside, what are those other takeaways that I can offer guests as they're leaving that add on their check? And that's going to be things like, hey chef, what do you got going on? Let's throw it into a milk punch, and I'm going to actually take this other stuff that I don't know what to do with and make something out of it, so we can actually have those add-on sales that will help. But that's kind of just thinking again when we talk about margins and all those things of where we're just trying to, you know, deplete stock we have to be in a healthier place, but also make those check averages higher.
Yeah, the plasticware is is just, it's egregious. It's like, I know we're trying to save ourselves, so we've kind of forgotten about where we live, you know?
I go on this diatribe at our cafe, because our cafe has stayed open the entire time and is in a neighborhood, and it's extremely busy. In fact, it's about 30% up this year. But I go on a diatribe about the waste we're accumulating because everybody's scared of dying, so they forgot to worry about the environment. And not to mention the cost of putting every single item we sell in a container, but the environmental cost it got to be insane worldwide.
I mean, and you charge, there's a little add-on for to go, right?
Mhm.
Like we do
Correct.
at El Gallo. Are you
Mhm.
guys doing that, Lynette?
Yeah, we charge $1 per order. So if we have a family of 6, we're not paying for it, but a 2-person order, we're making out better, of course. But yeah, we're covering the cost, but it's still ecologically quite unsound.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's built in to our cost because I don't know, I think New York feels it'll be a really hard transition. But for some of our concepts originally, for Lama San for a while, we didn't do to go for all those same reasons of like, one, how do you have that style of food travel and arrive at the guest's home and feel like it's as special? And we struggle with that still. Lama Inn is more adaptable because it's more of the Peruvian cafe, and the cuisine is a little more family style, and so it travels better. But that's been a challenge the whole time. We've been able to pivot more on cocktail and beverage, which has helped keep those concepts, making those add-on purchases.
And North Carolina has outlawed, it has like voted down the whole to-go alcoholic beverage thing, which is mind-blowing, but yes, but not because where we are. Jen, what about you guys?
For us, we originally wanted to, put that extra surcharge on because of all of the extra packaging and the extra time that it takes to do and to get it all organized and everything, and just dedicating a whole new space in the kitchen for all of this new to-go ware that we didn't have before. But we saw, a little bit of throwback from the clientele, not just hitting like Spice Finch, but hitting a lot of different restaurants across Philadelphia saying, you're charging us more. Why? Like, we don't want to pay the extra dollar. And we're like, we're not trying to make any money off of you. We're actually trying to just break even here, make our own margins. And we have definitely gone up and down in our price scale with trying to figure things out. And, to Lynette's point, like figuring out what makes sense to go home. Because a lot of food does not travel well. And to provide, some kind of experience that is equal to our standards has been, really difficult, along with making sure that the pricing is right, because we don't want to overcharge, we don't want to undercharge and cut like ourselves out and then lose money. So it's been really hard trying to find that right sweet spot of what is right for everybody across the board, not just for our business, but for our guests that want to experience our food and our drinks and everything at home. So it's been really difficult, and finding sustainable packaging that is not crazy expensive has been almost impossible.
Right.
And so, we're using the deli cups and the plastic containers. We were just going so hard about getting rid of plastic straws. Now,
I know.
Now look at everything. It's just.
And everybody wants a straw now. Even the people who didn't want straws before, now they want straws.
Yep.
I don't get it.
Everybody wants that plastic fork and spoon in their to-go, even when they're going home and they have the silverware at home. We don't put it into our to-go stuff unless somebody actually asks for it. Like, we have an option is for you to ask. So, that's one little thing. I don't know.
It just shows how much of what we're going through is based on personal perception of every person, both in the business and as a customer. Every staff member and every customer is judging where we are and building their own subjective perception of what is best and what is safe. And unfortunately, that doesn't make anything best or safe. It just makes people have a viewpoint of what is best and safe. So thereby making our jobs even harder because we have to read the room nonstop.
Right. And we have about 20 minutes left, and I think that we should probably try to talk about service a little bit. We just had a manager meeting this morning in which one of the things that was said was that the biggest complaint that we're having right now is that service isn't what people would are expecting. And I've been thinking about it since the meeting. And I think that part of that comes from I think that servers feel that they're directly in the line of fire, even though like their contact with people is actually pretty minimal. I think that like they're spending less time at table than they would have before. You know, I think that they're minimizing their time at table on purpose. I mean, and, you know, like in terms of bars, like we're gonna open upstairs this weekend. Sorry, that just made me quick. Gonna open upstairs this weekend, and I'm gonna work the bar this weekend for the first time in well, since March, and I'm sure I'm going to be rusty, but also you know, the prospect of face-to-face communication is different than it used to be, and you know, like people are supposed to know to wear their masks indoors, or like if they're walking up to the counter to order from you. But I mean, I would say, you know, it's 50-50. It's a 50-50 chance. In my experience so far, I have to tell 50% of the people to take their mask off their chin and put it over their nose, you know? And there's, you know, like, there's that, it makes you feel like they don't really care about you. Like they don't care about how the other people around you because you decided to unmask in this room full of people. But like, I think that service itself, like the way a lot of people are grateful for limited contact in my experience, because like, they're like, yes, give me my food. Let me have what I want. I want to ask you a question. And then then they like put their mask on to ask me a question. And then they take their mask off as I walk away. You know what I mean? Like I think that we have to relearn service and hospitality. Like we don't need to relearn what hospitality is, but we need to relearn how we're going to execute it. You know, also with all the outdoor seating and everything, you're traveling way further than you used to, and it's really easy to like to miss something because you're like you're basically I kind of fishbowl around the space. Like when I'm on the floor, if I'm managing on the floor, then I'm moving in circles around so I can pull dishes and like do what I can do and like answer questions and get stuff if I need to. But, you know, invariably it's, you know, things get missed. Lynnette or Jen or Jacob, anyone?
Start with, you know, I think some of the things that we learned throughout this was, I think to your point, we're lucky a bit in New York City that it was so hard so early that people are way more conscious and put the mask up and are you know, so it almost has felt safer for me when I've gone down into the city in a way because people are conditioned. When it comes to service, you know, what I've learned now that I've been actively like MOD up here in upstate and things is learning one, and I know it sounds crazy, but everyone has to like start using their retronasal when speaking now. We all need to get up here and speak through our mask. Like we forget how much we actually are reading people's lips and people are reading ours in service. And it's really something, so learning some more universal signs and things that we've been able to do as nonverbal communication has increased our ways of helping each other in a room when we can't see each other, which we all know, right? That comes from like the kitchen teaching us and front of house, nonverbal communication. Now we're using that a bit more and getting guests accustomed to that. Standing a little further back so they feel more comfortable as well, and that way we feel comfortable. And then with like Lama San, what we started doing was, because we had to change in order to accommodate all the guests and have a safe exiting of guests and have time to clean, we've had to put pretty strict time frames on dining periods. And so as people sit down, we tell them, you know, you have either an hour and 45 minutes or an hour and a half for your reservation. and we just start getting things moving quicker. At Llama San, that's been implementing an omakase that people can opt into, which has actually really helped us. And more people are doing it than we thought. I think, one, to your point, it helps. They're overwhelmed. It might be one of the first things they're coming back. They're coming to a place for like a nice meal that they've heard about and they're coming to. So that omakase allows them to try a lot of things. It helps us out. So we've been really kind of figuring that kind of system, just so we can stay elevated and make sure the guests have it, while we're also asking them to like kind of move it along quickly so we can have it. And there's a lot of making it up to guests when you need to, with bubbles when they come back. You're like, so sorry, we had to ask you to walk away for 10 minutes, but now you come back and here you go. And I think there's just still those human qualities that we know, and a lot of people are extremely understanding. And you'll have some guests that are not, and unfortunately, those are the guests who won't come back. But you just have to kind of persevere and be strong on your points and things that make it a safe environment for your team. And that's come up with things like temperature checks. We've had a couple of guest reservations where we'll take their temperature. We're like, okay, well, you have to wait 10 minutes outside, and we'll try it again, see before they walk to the patio. And we've had to rebook some reservations based on temp not going down. So it's hard, but you just have to do it with a smile and the best way that you can make everyone feel comfortable.
Jen?
I think for us, service has definitely changed. We're doing a lot less interacting with the table, like you have all mentioned, but some of the guests really want to talk to somebody. And what I've noticed is that they're holding the server there even longer than what was before. And that is really hard and really difficult when they're trying to get away because there's such a limited staff, right? And so we've had to learn new things to say, like, before you got caught in a conversation and you were usually fine because a manager or another server or a busser or a back waiter could pick it up and like pick up your slack behind you and let it be like unnoticed. But now it's very noticeable if you're at a table for 5 minutes. There's no more explaining specials and going through all of the ingredients. And, one big thing at Spice Finches, we're really big on people's allergies and really being hyper sensitive to their dietary restrictions. And so going through menus with people and talking about allergies, we've kind of become known that we will adjust to whatever we can. So that personal interaction takes up a lot of time. And it also takes like going back to the kitchen and like checking with the chef and then coming back out to the table. And so that really hurts the other tables that are there trying to have that same experience. And so that has been really difficult for us to balance and to find out, like, we have allergy menus and stuff that is all written out, but you still need that conversation. You still need that confirmation. And that guest also still wants to feel that we're doing the right safe thing for them. So that has been very difficult. And also with starting over and reopening and not having our, all of our team come back who, just didn't want to come back and just haven't felt safe enough, is promoting that with people that weren't servers before and they're learning a new job. They're not as experienced as before, or having a new person come into our environment and not having that full time to train them on our food and fully talk to them about our brand, to give them the story. Just that it's different. It's very different now.
Right.
So,
like you're training them on the fly, basically, right? That's what, there's no like training week. You don't have a week to do training.
no, there's no 1 day in the kitchen, learning, watching, tasting, asking questions. There's no, following, shadowing another server. There's none of that. I mean, there's not time, there's not money, it's just, okay, let's go. And so it's been, a lot of our guests have been understanding. We've had a lot of regulars come back, but we also have seen, like you have all seen, we've seen a different group of different clientele coming in and trying to learn that clientele and to build them to become our regulars has been really difficult. But service is definitely not what it was before. And even though we're all sweeping and we're all doing every job as much as we possibly can, there's still not enough of us there to take care of the guests as well as we really truly want to. And I think what all of us know hospitality to be, and why we are all in this, to make guests happy. We're doing the best we can, but it's just not, I think, what any of us truly, know it and want it in our hearts to be.
Right. Jacob, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's a really good, really good point. Is absolutely. And you throw opening a brand new concept, and yes, there is no time for training. It is just, here's some customers, go wait on them, figure it out. And yeah, Jennifer, you're absolutely right. The allergy conversation, in order to do it right and to provide the customer with what you want to provide them, if you're actually invested in the concept of providing for people that don't eat everything, it takes so much interaction. And for us, in the concepts that I have, that where we take that very seriously, we take it very seriously. Like, if you're gluten-free, we do not want to make you sick. So we are going to talk to you about every single thing that could possibly be in there. And that just, you can't do that in this limited contact setting. Again, it's like the perception of other fears or other concerns has gone out the window because the pandemic seems to be the greatest concern.
And for some of the concepts, so Wonder Bar and Beacon, we just put that on the menu because we're primarily a cocktail bar with small plates. So we're notating all the vegan, gluten-free, and all of that, because to that point of saving time, and that at least half that conversation's up front, and then we can engage deeper with them if there's any questions about substitutions that can make something. But it is a lengthy conversation. It is hard to have, even when we're trying to, we'd love to be able to give dealer's choice to every guest who walks in all the time as well, especially at the restaurants. But that is hard too. Like, it's hard. We're having a hard time even like selling like our premium back bar for the same reasons, right? It's like, I have 8 Japanese whiskeys that are going to blow your mind, but the time it's going to take the bartender who's your server to go through all those products and dial in what you want is just time that we don't have anymore. And that's a bummer. We're trying to find ways to put those products out there. And I think we kind of realized, especially with like Mama Inn, some of that's going to be just having to feature a few at a time. And then the QR code will have a deeper menu that if guests have time to scroll through. But it is a challenge in that way of wanting to bring beautiful boutique products to people that we all want to sell, because they take more explanation, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I will say that in terms of allergy menus that I've seen, like the one at Spice Finch is Aces. That's one of the best allergy menus I've seen. I actually stole a copy of it the last time I was there to use as an example to someone who like was trying to write one. I was like, this is the shit. I think we only have a few minutes left, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time. I know that we all have 1 million things on our list of things to do today, and I want to sort of circle back to the point that I don't think I've ever used that phrase before, by the way. Circle back, that's the first time for me. That to the point that this was a very different conversation and involved a lot of spreadsheets in November. Spreadsheets on, costing and like a deep dive into how to cross-utilize and get your proper costing into the proper areas and stuff like that. And what I noticed from talking to you guys before this happened and from this conversation is that, like, our conversation is less about hey, how do you get the right amount of sugar into the bar spreadsheet, and more about the actual execution of our jobs and how our jobs have all become all of the jobs. I'm a floor manager. I'm a server. I'm producing everything that we're putting out through the bar right now. And that's what everyone's doing. Lynnette, that's what you're doing in 4 places, apparently. And Jen, I mean, you and Billy, I watch your videos, and like, I don't know how you have time to go to the restaurant. Um, like, and I'm sorry to hear about Chewy. But, and Jacob, I know you've always got 3 people lined up behind the person you're talking to. So we've all sort of the difficulty of this, of the change to our industry, I think can only be overcome through all of us continuing this conversation and through all of it. I mean, eventually we'll figure out how to do this. Hopefully, but it's like, it's a really hard place for us all to be. And I mean, I hope that some of the suggestions we've given will help the people who are watching the seminar. You can reach out to me and get me on Facebook or Instagram, anyone who has questions. And Lynnette and Jacob and Jennifer's Instagrams are all at the bottom of their pictures at the intro to the seminar. Guys, do you have anything you'd like to add before we go? Lynnette?
No, I think that pretty much covered it all. The deeper resources, I think, from the bar end, you know, Phoebe and I did mention there are some, maybe some of you out there who are bar managers are doing things differently than you've had in the past. So her batch costing doc, which is quite simple, will be really helpful. And, you know, I just say, I hope that this time actually helps you be more creative in the ways that you have to think about things. I know it's made me have to think about ingredients and bottles on shelves in different ways. So if there's a positive side, I think we can all learn that. You know, I've been really happy to see our restaurant grow as a family even more so. You know, our owner, Juan, has been a fearless leader, and we realized what a crisis manager he is. And there's something very, when you hear people talk about that you as your team and that everyone who's in the restaurant, that everyone's health and welfare is the most important thing, that's really encouraging, and that keeps families together. So I really am grateful for this time for that. But, you know, find those places and we can all work together, and it is about becoming more of a strong team than ever before. And I think on the outside of this pandemic, we will be stronger and have a greater understanding for each other and a greater respect, which is always what we wanted from this seminar anyway. So,
Jacob?
Yeah, I suppose I just want to circle back, Phoebe, and say that I actually this week am having the first thoughts of not wanting to do this anymore, and that's just it's been a stressful week and trying to look ahead at the coming winter, and you know, the stress is probably getting the better of me. But ultimately, this is our career. This is what we do. I think we're probably all about in the same age bracket and probably all done this our whole lives. And not only do I not know what else I would do, but I also think that what we do, although it doesn't save the world, we do feed the world, and we provide our guests with a service where they can leave the stressful part of the world behind and enjoy food and beverage. And it's always been my vocation and my avocation, and I don't want to do anything else. And I want to continue to provide the spaces for people to have fun and enjoy food and enjoy beverage and enjoy whatever their company they choose to keep is. And I think we're all doing our best. All of us in our industry right now are trying to keep it afloat. And it's going to take it's going to take a lot more work, and it's going to take a lot more thankless work for those on my end. In the operator side, it's going to take a lot more money, a lot more capital down the toilet to keep this thing afloat. And for everybody that's on the ground doing it, it's a lot of thankless work to keep the ship afloat. And I'm still proud to be part of it.
Jen?
Well, I think everything you guys have said is so true and so amazing. But I think one thing that we all need to remember is right now there's so many stresses on us, is to really look at each other, reach out to our friends, really check in with each other. You know, maybe not just send even like a, hey, what's up text. And if they don't answer back, maybe hit them up again and give them a phone call. But I think truly checking in with your friends, your family, your team that is working with you and see how they're doing, because there's so much going on in this world that sometimes all we need is just a quick like motivational hello to make the day 1,000 times better, because we all have had really hard days, and I know there's going to be a lot of hard days in front of us, especially with winter coming up. So check in, be kind, be well, smile, and love each other. That's what hospitality is all about.
Yeah, I mean, in closing, what I'd like to say is that this is also our opportunity to remake our industry for the better.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is it. This is our window. I feel like to fix the things that are broken, to stop using people until they are used up, and to find ways to support the people who need the support. And by building relationships within your own house, within your own front and back of house that are supportive and helpful to each other, is the first step in becoming a better industry. Right. So. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.